came from, you don't know this, and even though you created the program, what really happened is that all these things came from each other, and there was really just one code carrying creature early on, or a set of tiny, tiny creatures with an ultra simple code, and then they got more complex through time and cross code. The different species, the different classes turned into different classes, and so forth. And you'd say, wait a minute, that you didn't describe my program at all. That has nothing to do with what we see here on the computer screen. See, this is the analogy to the world. The first analogy, the first description, the correct one, is that's what we really see in the world. The second description is the one that when we have all these philosophies of speciation and progression through time and differentiation of species through I don't know, whatever the mechanism for natural selection or whatever, but of course we know that can't be the mechanism. So you see, that example shows you how staggeringly non-empirical the evolutionary account really is compared to the strictly empirical account of just looking at the world the way it is. I mean, they will tell you they've discovered co-ancestry, and that's specifically the invisible thing that they're asking you to believe in. I mean, go ask them what the common ancestor of humans and chimps are, and they'll start throwing out wild theories. They don't know. They've never seen it. And they may want to say, oh, well, the empirical evidence points towards its existence. I don't know if they'll be this sophisticated, but it could kind of be like thought of as a black hole, they may say, where we don't see the black hole, but we see the planet going around in a certain way in Cygnus X1 star system, and but there's nothing that they're going around, so it has to be a black hole. We don't see it, but the empirical evidence points directly to it. If they are real sophisticated, they could say something like that. But the problem is everything we've said here today disproves that, because the empirical evidence actually doesn't point towards that, because we don't have the progression that we thought we did. See, the evolutionists always they have a lens that they see through, called progression and species change. So when they find any difference of any sort, or any similarity of any sort between any two creatures, such as humans and chimps, they always view it through that lens and say, we've discovered another path in the ancestry, another way that creatures have differentiated and so forth. But really, all they've discovered is a similarity or a difference of the different DNA patterns and codes that all the different creatures use. You see, the difference there is stunning, and I bet a lot of people listening to this show now still just can't get their mind around that the empirical account is not one of progression. Okay, we've been since all of you were young, you've been told on your little television cartoon shows and your little kindergarten classes and everything that everything's really old and everything's progressing and so forth. And even though nobody's ever seen the progression happen, and therefore it's completely made up and non-empirical, not scientific, it's just pseudoscience, since we've all been taught this since we were very, very young, it's so difficult for us to unlearn what we have learned, to put it in the way Yoda did. DNA is the basic ingredient of life. Okay, so of course it's going to be used over and over and over, and from creature to creature to creature. You don't need, but that's all we know right there. To say I came from a rock, or it came from chemicals, or I came from primordial soup, or whatever the different things different scientists or their critics say, describing this process of evolution at different times that they have through the last 150 years, is all just simply not needed if you want to pay attention to what you can see with your eyes and what is implied by that empirical evidence. So anyway, there's my show for all of you today. Basically, just totally obliterating the idea of chromosome 2 fusion. There is no chromosome 2 fusion. Why do we, like there was a good YouTube video made saying, why do we assume they were ever separate? And that's exactly, I can just hear creationists saying, well, of course it was separate. And I say, oh yeah, really, prove it. Show me the empirical evidence. Okay, and they'll point at a chimpanzee, and I'll say, okay, that's not evidence that it fused. That's evidence that there's another creature with using similar codes. So, but anyway, I think I've gotten my point across. Just really stunned how easy it is to refute these silly evolutionist arguments. When something's non-empirical science, it is really easy to do that, though. Pseudoscience is the easiest thing to refute, because all you do is just apply the hammer of logic and the sword of skepticism and the gun of empirical observation, and all the pseudoscience just falls away, and what's left is the empirical world. It's quite a beautiful process, science and philosophy, which is what the theorization that we get from science. See, unfortunately, what the evolutionists do is they have that all backwards. They first have the philosophy of the progression and deep time and so forth, and then after that they have, then they make their science up from that. So, but anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me today on the Antimatter Radio Show. I'm going to hour 2 right now. The title of that show is The Ecstasy of Togetherness. Follows from the Fractality show that we did on the 7th. Okay, everybody, well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone, unless I'm talking to you in hour 2, which is going to start right now.